Want to give your home a cozy glow up? Wisco Home Goods has you covered with hand-poured soy candles, crafted in small batches, made to burn clean, and scented to perfection. Stop by their store at 4664 Cottage Grove Road on Madison's beautiful east side, or browse online at wiscohomegoods.com. Shop local, breathe easy, feel good with Wisco Home Goods. Want some summer fun for a good cause? Loop the Lake is coming up Saturday, June 14th. It's a go-at-your-own-pace bike ride benefit for Clean Lakes Alliance, presented by Lake Ridge Bank. Riders start and end at Oberth Park and travel 13 miles clockwise around Lake Winona. And perk? Kids 10 and under ride free with a paid adult. You in? Sign up for Loop the Lake today. Go to cleanlakesalliance.org/loop-the-lake and use code BIKE10 to save 10%. Today on CityCast Madison. Have you been taking advantage of peak Morel season? You know, the delicate, earthy mushrooms everyone goes mad for? It's not too late to get your hands on these coveted fungi. Peak Morel season in Wisconsin typically runs through May and sometimes lingers into June, so it's high time to get in on the hunt. We're bringing back our past conversation with the former president and current board member of the Wisconsin Mycological Society, Melissa Klocka. She's got great tips and advice on how to find morels and other mushrooms in the Madison area. It's Wednesday, May 28th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Melissa, hi.
Hi.
So we are here to talk mushroom hunting, and we got to start with the big one, morels. What kind of conditions do you want, or would you hope for, like a wet spring or?
Well, actually, I've heard that it's actually more the fall weather from the year before that predicts like what kind of morel flushes you're going to get for like that next spring. So it's hard to say. And actually, the other day when we were out, I was really worried because it was very dry where we were at. And normally in that type of weather in the summer and fall, you really wouldn't be finding many mushrooms at all. But, you know, morels don't really care about necessarily if it's dry or not, because they can actually take advantage of like the dew. They take advantage of that where it's like kind of like condensing at night and in the early morning as it cools down, you get like that condensation. And then that is, you know, something that they can actually take advantage of and live off of that moisture.
Nice. So they're super clever creatures.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And they also look super neat. Their caps to me almost look like tan, yellowish smoke spirals in the shape of a wizard's hat. That's what I decided.
I love that.
How would you describe them?
I do not know. Like
weird.
A piece of Swiss cheese come into its ultimate form, or something like that.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Yeah, they're the cavernous sort of creatures. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very different than like any other mushroom. And I think that's part of the reason why people love them so much is because they are really different looking than other mushrooms with their crazy, you know, pits and folds and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear that there are false morels. How can you tell a real morel apart from a false morel?
Okay, so not to be sassy, but we love to say that, like, you know, other mushrooms are all technically false morels because none of the other ones are morels. But yes, they're called Gyrometra species, and they have, instead of like pits that kind of like look like it's been pushed inward, it's almost like morels look like someone has taken like an eraser or something and kind of like, you know, made a whole bunch of like holes going inward. Gyrometra kind of look like they fold outward to some extent. But if you want to give yourself like a good comparison, to me, they look like a brain sometimes, where
Yeah.
it's like kind of that wrinkly surface,
Like a
or
walnut.
sometimes they, yeah, kind of like that, or like fried chicken. Strangely enough, they kind of look like that from afar too. So, and that one, the reason that people are kind of more into, bringing the attention to like the false morels is because of the fact that they don't want people to think this is a morel and eat it, because some of those genus actually can cause poisoning if you eat it. So it's definitely something that people do want to be aware of
A
before they go out hunting
safety.
for morels. Exactly. Yes.
So where do you like to look for morels?
The best thing I've heard lately was one of the people on one of my forays said, "Where do you look for morels? Everywhere and nowhere?" And I said, "Yes." Because it's hard to know where they're going to be and when they're going to be there. So if you're lucky enough to find some, then good for you. But I found that a good mix of pine and hardwood with a little bit of prickly ash kind of peppered in there is a lovely, ideal climate for morels to propagate themselves. So I will be looking for these areas in the future.
Okay, so is it like at the root of the tree basically or at the base of the tree?
Oh,
In your
actually, it actually grows on the soil. So it
Okay,
has a relationship where it is like it's dependent on like, certain types of trees being present.
got it.
If you have that kind of mix of wood that I talked about, you just look on the ground. And in that type of mix of wood, there's pine cones that are going to sort of be something that draws your eye to them. And visually speaking, there's a lot of noise then because you have pine cone, morel, and they kind of look alike from
Yeah.
when you're not really looking. So it's very hard to spot them. And I think that they kind of hide and they might even point and laugh at you as you walk by looking for them. But, you have to really slow down and
Mm.
really look. And that is the part that I think that some people really have a hard time with because they want to kind of keep walking. And you have to kind of force yourself to like plant yourself and like scan each individual little pine cone in an area and be like, oh, that is not a pine cone. That is a morel. I'm going to pluck it. And then, you get it.
Oh my
So.
gosh. So you have to sit, open your ears to the laughter of the mushrooms.
Yes, that's right.
There's so much intrigue. Like there's the thrill of the hunt. There's mysteries about where it lives. This is very
Yeah.
exciting. So do you have personal rules for foraging?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, I love to tell people, and this isn't necessarily having to do with like foraging itself, but like when you go out into the wild, we have to try to make sure that people know that we're trying to be stewards of the land. And it is our responsibility, and no one else is going to do this to like clean up after ourselves and possibly also clean up after other people. So when I find trash out into the woods, someone's granola wrapper or whatever it might be, if I just take out 2 or 3 pieces of trash every time I go, and if everyone does that, then that place is going to be significantly cleaner when we're done with it. So that is important. There's also like certain types of mushrooms where they take years to grow, and therefore, conchs, the big like woody ones that are probably at least like 2 or 3 inches at least in diameter, and they're like a shelf mushroom and they kind of grow out from the trees and they have like rings of growth if you look at the top like very closely. Those mushrooms take a couple of years to grow. And when we're at our events, we always discourage people from plucking them off the trees because, that is just, to me, that's a bit of a more limited resource. And we don't need to pluck every single conch that we see off of a, tree. We just have people take a picture of that and show that to us when we're trying to do a species list for our scientific records. But
Okay.
on the other hand, like cap and stem type mushrooms are plentiful. And something that people don't know about it is that as long as you are being a good steward of the land, that mycelial network is like everywhere. Right.
Mm.
So if you're taking a mushroom, like a cap and stem mushroom off of the ground, like a morel, for instance, a lot of people are like, they'll talk to you about, oh, leave your bag, a mesh bag, so it's open so that you can spread the spores and stuff. But that mushroom has already spread billions of spores before you've ever picked it. So there's really no reason to be worried about like spore dispersal and stuff like that. That mushroom is doing what they need to do before you ever get to it to repropagate itself. Plus the mycelium that's under your feet is going to be there. So it's rather like taking an apple off of a tree or removing a blueberry from a blueberry bush. The bush you're not hurting. The tree you're not hurting. Same with the mycelial network. As long as we're not polluting the area, we're not
That's
like
awesome.
harming the area.
That is so awesome.
So it's
all
very
underground.
different.
They've already established their survival. That's very cool.
Do you need an entertaining spot for your next work event or birthday? How about taking it to the next level and choosing somewhere thrilling? The Thrill Factory has an arcade, bowling, tiki bar and restaurant, escape rooms, mini golf, laser tag, VR, and believe it or not, even more. Picture an indoor theme park on adrenaline. Oh, and did I mention they've got animatronic dragons? It's the ultimate family entertainment experience. All ages are welcome to enjoy Madison's largest collection of indoor activities. Their claim to fame is that they throw, quote, Madison's best corporate and birthday parties. Both of those event packages start at just $2.99. So, are you and your group ready for a thrill? Contact Thrill Factories at 608-285-5584 or online at thrillfactoryentertainment.com to book today.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
I'm not sure if you've heard this joke, but I was going to ask you about your moral code or Morel code. I forced you to laugh.
Yes,
if there's
I've
a
heard
Morel
that one
code.
a couple of times.
All
yes.
right. I'm not so
It's
clever.
the same as like there's another one that all mushrooms are edible, but some are only edible once. And the punchline of that is implied that if you eat certain types of mushrooms, they will kill you, and therefore you can't eat them a second time.
That was your one opportunity. And speaking of, I was going to ask about other mushrooms you go hunting for this time of year.
Okay. My favorite mushroom to find and consume is Grifola frondosa, and that is kind of like the common name for that is hen of the woods. It's a brown mushroom. It gets very big. Like big. And
wow, that was you moved your hands. That was like bigger than a basketball, like big.
Yeah, like two basketballs together sometimes, like big. So yeah, they have, and the reason, it says frondosa is like it has many fronds kind of growing out of it. I would say it kind of looks like a big carnation, but like with a lot more petals or whatever, but brown. And kind of a little striated on the top. It has pores on the other side. It's like white pores, and it looks like a black staining polypore. But the black staining polypore, to its name, like if you handle it at the bottom on the pores, it'll actually stain brown. So that's like the only like super close look like. Very, very tasty. Maitake is another name for it. It's wonderful in texture and flavor. And it's actually just starting to be sold in grocery stores fairly commonly. So be on the lookout in your grocery store if you ever want to try one of those. If you don't want to forage, they're wonderful. Really good.
That sounds so lovely. How did you get into this?
It was kind of a natural evolution for me. My father was a wastewater treatment plant operator. And I know it doesn't sound like that should have anything to do with this, but his holding tank ponds in the back of where he treated the water, there was like a lot of mushrooms that would grow back there. And I was always fascinated by them as a kid. And he would, not from this area, but every now and then he would like find mushrooms on the side of the road. He brought home morels once when I was a kid, not from the plant. And I thought they were just the coolest thing in the entire world. And then, you know, we get older and our interests kind of change and stuff or whatever. And then one day, probably about 10 years ago, I found this flush of mushrooms in my backyard and I just thought they were the coolest thing. And so I started looking up like videos of like how to identify mushrooms and that kind of stuff. And that led me to a couple of Facebook groups like Wild Food Wisconsin and Mushroom Identification and stuff on Facebook. And I was, you know, trying to get as much as I could, consuming content on YouTube, like Learn Your Land by Adam Harriton. It's a really good channel. And I kind of got obsessed with, you know, mushrooms. And one day in a group, someone said to me, if you're this into mushrooms, why don't you join the Wisconsin Mycological Society? And I said, what is that? And they said, it's a club in Wisconsin for people who like mushrooms. And I said, there's a club? Oh my God.
Move out of my way.
Yes. So I looked them up and I was so pleased to find them. And, you know, I started attending the events like right away. And I was just so full of like vim and vigor that they said, do you want to be on the board? And I said, yes, of course I want to be on the board, even though I don't know a lot about mushrooms at the time, you know? And so I threw myself into, you know, sort of organizing events and learning more about mushrooms and getting as involved as I could. And here we are.
This is excellent because I want to talk to you about, you know, if someone's new to town, new to Madison, or new to mushroom hunting, what's a good way for folks to learn how to do it? Like you're talking about forays, you know, going out in groups.
Yeah.
There's a Madison Mycological Society as well.
It is Madison Mycological Association, and they are wonderful. They have forays every year. And if anyone is in the Madison area, definitely go see them. But one of the great things about getting out and going on forays with people is, you know, if you have an expert that's there, and, you know, when you're a beginner, an intermediate is an expert to you if you don't know a ton, you know, having someone that's there that can guide you and say, okay, with this mushroom, this is what we are looking at. And this is how we've decided this is what the species is, and, you know, and the genus, and this is how we find out all of that information. And so, you know, that one-on-one interaction, like studying online is great, but at least in my opinion, in my experience, when you're actually there in person and you can look at it and you can smell a mushroom and you can even taste all mushrooms in Wisconsin, as long as you spit them out, they're not going to harm you. So taste, smell, texture, everything, all of these things are going to help you remember it more.
Melissa, you are wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us the scoop on morels and more, morels and more. And we'll be excited to share the resources so folks can get involved in the society, should they wish.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
That's Melissa Klatka, former president and current board member of the Wisconsin Mycological Society. If you want to get involved with the organization and join in on any of their forays, head to our show notes for a link. And a quick correction to our show from last Friday. The Memorial Mile Veterans Memorial Display can be seen along Atwood Avenue by Ulbrich Park, not Olin Park. We're sorry for any confusion there. Y'all, you can check out that display through this Saturday. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. your host. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone who honors the beauty of the forest? All right, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until next time, take good care.